welcome to the Opposition Preview. So, hello everyone and welcome back to the Bleed Norwich YouTube channel. Championship action midweek at Carrow Road under the lights. Philip Clement's first game at Carrow Road, and we host Oxford United in a relegation six-pointer. And I've got Jack Ward from the Jack Ward podcast with me. Jack, how are you today, mate?
I'm good. We were just saying before we hit record, I don't think either of us are very, very excited for this. I don't think either of us are looking forward to it, but it's got to be done, mate. We're talking about 6 pointers, relegation 6 pointers in November. I mean, what has the world come to? But, you know, we've got to approach it. Both of us looking to hopefully get something from the game. It's nerve-wracking.
Yeah, it's it's a scary time of the season, this, because the fixtures come thick and fast. We haven't got an international break till March now, and games like this where both of us need to pick up points against teams that are in around us in the league table. It is a huge fixture. But you've obviously had a bit of success against Norwich in recent times. Last season, obviously beating us 2-0 at your place right at the start of the season, opening day, and then getting a point at Carrow Road and causing us all sorts of problems. And obviously Gary Rowett came into Oxford last season. He's such an experienced manager at this level. How pivotal is having a man like Gary Rowett for your season this season in terms of hopefully staying up?
Massive. I mean, like you say, we appointed him last season for one reason and for one reason only, and that's to be a team that's hard to beat. That's to be a team that's got that level-headed, experienced manager. We had Des Buckingham, who was the manager that got us in the league, which was a fantastic achievement, but it was clear that the owners and Oxford United felt that we had to prioritise this current state of play, and that was last season to stay in the league no matter what. And he came in with that job, and he came in and achieved that remarkably. This season, it's been a little bit different. I think we've been a little bit too leaky. I think we have lost in some ways that ability to be hard to beat, which is something that is concerning a few Oxford fans, because that is the big reason and the main reason why Gary Rowett was appointed last season. And he showed that he can make us a really well organised team. Having said that, we are where we are, and that's expected. I think that's not people sort of surprised or talking about Oxford in this position. But that's where Oxford fans, the level-headed, even the optimistic Oxford fans, we knew we were going to be fighting down the bottom of the table. And if you had to turn to a guy and turn to a manager that's been there and done it, Gary Rowett would be the guy you want at the helm during those periods. So, yeah, it's a big job. He's got to squeeze every piece of quality, every fine margin out of a group to keep a team like Oxford in the Championship, because it's so competitive, as Norwich fans are finding it. Maybe not at the end of the table you thought you'd be fighting, but it's the same top and bottom. It's extremely competitive. But yeah, he is very, very important, and it hasn't maybe been we are 21st, but he's extremely important to what we want to do, and that's ultimately stay in the league.
Yeah, no, of course. I think Oxford are probably the team that was on everybody's list in the sure. Bottom three come the start of the season for your table predictions and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, looking at Oxford financially, you haven't got the biggest budget in the league, probably the smallest budget in the league as well, and I think that plays a massive part. You look at sides like Ipswich and Southampton that have splashed well over nearly 100 million and whatnot in the summer, and teams like Oxford just cannot compete with that. How would you say that Oxford can manage around that to make sure that they do sort of, I wouldn't say keep up with like the Ipswich and Southamptons, but to be able to keep up with the rest of the league, so to speak?
I think there's a few angles to look at it. I think if you go to recruitment, you have to look at trying to find, nowadays, foreign markets is a really good way of almost finding quality without spending as much as you would do if you maybe got the player from League One, for example, or a fellow Championship club. For Oxford, it's probably going to be League One. We're not going to be poaching talent off Championship clubs. If we are, they're not going to be players that are playing regularly for that Championship club, because again, that's just the position we're currently in. So yeah, there's a few angles to it. Spending well. We haven't got the biggest budget. You're right. We're one of the smallest, if not the smallest in the league. So having to sort of get every ounce of that is important. And again, it's about sounds cliche and it's not the most tactical insight I'm going to give, but it's the non-negotiables. It's the absolute hard work. It's those out of possession running metrics that are really, really important. It's about being really, really difficult and being a nuisance, using those fine margins, using set pieces. We have been good at set pieces this season. It's the stuff that wasn't sexy but now is, the long throws and things like that. You've just got to find every little bit of the game on and off the pitch to just try and get that little advantage. And I think as Oxford fans, and I think Gary said it himself in his press conference, Oxford have got to be perfect in every single game if we want to get a point. And it's everyone will say that's the case for every team, but it's not really. A team like you say that have got that multi-million-pound squad, your Ipswiches, your Birminghams, for example, they can be a little bit off it and they probably can still get something from the game, whereas Oxford can't do that. We've got to be at our 100% best, and that the team is probably, if we're being totally honest, has got to be a little bit short of that. But that's the reality we're in. I think we're quite, I don't want to say we're humble because that feels like we're not being humble, but I think we understand what we are. We understand that we're a team that have got to do that. And we're not just happy to be here. Obviously, we're not just going to sit there and clap whatever happens and cheer and smile, when we get beaten, because we're football fans at the end of the day. But we also understand that, we have to be at our maximum if we want to get anything from games. That might just be a point. We've done better against the top teams this season. We got a point off Coventry. We drew to Middlesbrough at the weekend. We've had a draw against Leicester. We've beaten Bristol City. We think we've got 6 or 7 points from the current top 4, which is really impressive. It's the teams away from home, like your Norwiches, unfortunately, where we've fallen short this season. But we're punched above our weight, mate. We're punched above our weight. But yeah, it's just finding those little bits of advantage that we can squeeze out of our squad that will make the difference. Because, like you say, it's so tight down there, and we're a small fish in a pretty big pond.
Yeah, no, it's interesting what you say sort of about your long throws and stuff like that, playing a bit sort of, well, what is now deemed, like you say, sexy, but playing sort of that bit of a rough style of play. And it worked last season against Norwich. I remember watching both games, especially the game at Carrow Road. You scored from a long throw, and it seems to be so effective. And you've definitely got the players to do that. And just looking at a few of your players, obviously there has been a few sort of really, really good talent sort of shining through. I think Lancashire being the main one, 5 goals this season. How impressive has he been?
Yeah, he's really important. I think you can just tell that this is a player that's come through Premier League academies, obviously on loan from Tottenham. Had a difficult time at West Brom on loan last season, didn't score, but this season he's found his shooting boots and he's putting the ball in the back of the net, which is obviously first and foremost the most important thing for a centre forward. That's obviously what's going to keep a team in the league. You need a striker that's going to score. I think putting it back to Norwich a little bit, with Josh Sargent not scoring, that's obviously going to put you in a bit of bother. So having a striker that can find the back of the net is pivotal, but also he works really hard. He's a really, really hard worker, which I think, I don't want to sort of paint the brush, in a negative way, but sometimes you sort of have these players that come on loan from Premier League clubs, and not that they're not bothered or they don't have that work rate, but you don't see it as obviously because sometimes they just think that they're coming down to the Championship, they'll be okay. I'm on loan from Tottenham, but actually he's coming down and doing the dirty stuff. He's coming down and really getting to grips with what this league is, and a lot of this league is physicality. A lot of this league is the hard graft. And that's the stuff that I've been really impressed by. I feel quite sorry for him sometimes because, again, we're not an open play chance creating machine, Oxford United. We're not, if you look at the numbers that some people might agree or disagree with, if you look at your likes of chances created XG, for example, we're going to be down the bottom there because our open play, and even just visually with the eye test, I've watched every game this season, we don't create loads of chances from open play. So sometimes you'll have someone like Will Lancashire who's working really hard, but he won't find the back of the net, not because he's a bad striker, but because we're not creating loads for him. But I would say that I think 90% of the opportunities that Will Lancashire's had this season, it feels like he's converted, which is really, really important. So yeah, he's a big boy, he's a hard worker, and he's popped up with some really important goals this season. So yeah, he's been a good piece of recruitment. And I come back to almost to the question you asked me before. That's those types of players. If you could just bring them in and sort of take a little bit of a gamble on them, they could be really, really important. And he has been so far.
Yeah, no, spot on. I mean, it was a very sort of I mean, I was slightly confused when I saw that Lancashire did head off to Oxford because, I
Mm,
mean, his sort of player profile, especially coming from Spurs, sort of a quick, nippy attacker. It was just very weird to sort of picture him in an Oxford side that will be very direct, play a lot of long balls, balls into the box, but. He's sort of taken like a duck to water with it, and he's been fantastic. I will just touch on your midfield as well because
mm,
I've been very impressed with that for the last sort of well, 1.5 seasons in the Championship, and that's Brannigan, and then who you brought in this season, the Keersmaker. Brannigan has been sort of a longevity master at Oxford. He's been
mm.
fantastic for you guys for years. But how solid has your midfield been this season? Has there been any issues, or has it been fairly compact?
Well, I've got some good news for Norwich fans is that Brannigan's injured and won't be playing tomorrow. Yeah, that's obviously a big blow for us in terms of this game. But yeah, Brannigan, you're right. I mean, it's almost pointless talking about him for a preview for tomorrow's game because he's not going to be playing. But he is, yeah, he's a legend. I mean, that word gets thrown around, right? But he's been so important to us, not just in the Championship because we've only spent about a season and a half in this league, but in League One, he's been with us nearly when we got relegated into League Two. And he's stuck by us. He's another club captain. So, missing him is going to be really significant. What he brings, not just his ability, the way that he can sort of just carry a team through his presence and stuff like that, and what he's seen at Oxford. And he's just so passionate. He cares. It's those sort of things that it's going to be, that has been really important. Luckily, if there is a shining light to go with him not being available, which there isn't really, but like you say, Brander Kirschmacher has come in this summer, and it looks like a really good player, a really good player. Signed him from Holland. He's a Belgian player, a Belgian international. Well, not international. Sorry, but I think he's played at youth level with them. But again, that's the type of thing going into those sort of foreign markets, and finding players like Brander Kirschmacher. Not many people have really heard of him. It took me about 4 or 5 weeks to even pronounce his name. So. Yeah, he looks like he's someone that, unfortunately, not to sort of upset Oxford fans, but in a better team probably would look even better. But yeah, he's a bit of a Rolls Royce, really good on the ball, looks good playing as a deeper player, can also play further up into the penalty box as well. Hasn't got a goal yet, but I think he's certainly got a really good strike on him. So yeah, together those have been pretty good. I think we're maybe missing a number 6. Neither of them are sort of your defensive midfielders, and it's been a bit of an issue for Oxford. Sometimes we can get overrun because you've got a Brannigan and a Kirschmacher that are probably your 8s. Are we crying out for a 6 potentially because we've got Will Volks, but he's aging a little bit, bless him. Still a good player, but whether he can play the Championship schedule of a Saturday to a Tuesday to we're playing on Friday, so it's a tough run for him. But those two are really important, and I imagine Brian Kirschmacher hopefully will be playing tomorrow, and it's an opportunity with Brannigan not there for him to really step up because we're gonna need those players to step up if we've got a chance.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of Norwich fans that will be watching this will be sort of licking their lips at the thought
Yeah.
that Brannigan won't be playing, and hopefully Norwich can finally win a midfield battle because that has been non-existent this season for us. But just sort of looking about how you will set up. Obviously, we spoke
Mm.
a lot about sort of your style of play in terms of being very direct, playing football the ugly that is now sexy way with like long throws and just being an absolute nuisance. What can we expect from Oxford tomorrow in terms of, I guess, your tactics, your style of play, and whatnot?
That's a good question. It's tough because you'd like to think we're going to be this well organized, sort of robust team. At times this season, on the road, we've struggled to do that, and even just those split-second moments, we've struggled to do that. We went 1-0 up against West Brom before the international break, and then straight away totally crumbled and conceded 2 and lost the game, which was sort of bitterly disappointing. I think at patches and at times this season we've been a bit too flaky. We've sort of lacked. We've sort of done the thing that we always say, and until it happens, you sort of go, yeah, that's another one where if you switch off for even a second in this league, teams are going to punish you. Even the teams that are down the bottom. I know you're not in a great place, and it's hard for you to believe, but trust me, these players in the Championship, the majority of teams, if an opposition makes a mistake, a lot of the time you're going to get punished. And maybe that's because we've been in League One not so long ago, and it wasn't maybe as frequent down there, but it certainly is in the Championship. In terms of the approach for tomorrow's game, I think it's going to be. I'd like to think we're gonna try and go there and. Well, we need to go there and get something from the match. We can't afford to lose. I think for Oxford, it's probably a must not lose. For you, it feels like a must win. I don't think we can go there with the must not lose mentality, because if we do that and you try and win the game, albeit your form isn't fantastic, I think, inviting pressure is really dangerous. And we've done that too often this season, invite pressure and sort of play this game of let's just hope the opposition won't score and get a little bit lucky. And unfortunately, that just is not the case in the Championship. A lot of these teams, even Sheffield Wednesday, for example, we did beat them, but in the second half, we invited so much pressure. They scored one, and they're probably unfortunate in their heads not to come away with a point in that game. And that's a team that are bottom, and you're not far off that. So, I expect we need to be really, really strong in the way that we defend our box well. We need to be, again, I don't think we're going to be, I don't imagine, we will be direct. I don't think we're going to be as direct as people think. We have tried to play a bit of football at times this season. We have got a few technical players in the middle of the park and even out wide that are not afraid to sort of play a little bit on the deck. I don't think it's total route one. But away from home this season, I think what we're going to try and do is make your defenders think about something quickly, and often that will be sort of hitting that back line. Hopefully, you've got Shane Duffy playing, and if you've got Shane Duffy playing, we might have a little bit of joy in behind. We might have a little bit of joy at that first engagement, but we'll wait and see. It's going to be. I don't imagine, and I think you'll probably agree. I can't see it being a pretty watch for it, because I think we're both in a position where Norwich will try and play good football. You want to play good football. I think you're almost now shifting in November where you're looking at that league table and thinking we're almost at sort of win no matter what. I don't care what it looks like. We just got to try and find a way to do it. So with both of those approaches in mind, I can't imagine it's going to be a wonderful advert for Championship football, but we'll wait and see.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. I think a win for Norwich fans, however it comes, if we have 10% of the ball and we're taking 20 shots on goal and we've only had one on target, but we get a 1-0 win, I think every Norwich fan is happy at the end of the day. But yeah, it is, because I think you'll probably be sat in a low block, and that's going to cause a lot of issues for Norwich, because our new manager Philip Clement, he's known for not being able to break down low blocks, especially at his time with Rangers, and I think that Norwich could very much come unstuck there. And if Shane Duffy starts, I think that's going to be a headache for a lot of Norwich fans, because he is horrendous. You just have to watch Birmingham's fourth goal just to sort of from the weekend, just to sum up our season. But just looking at your squad again, is there any other players that Norwich fans should look out for come tomorrow night?
I've got to give you an answer now, because that's not going to fit. That feels like I'm completely against us. I'm not. I think let's say look out for. I think hopefully we need Jack Curry is our left back, has been really good this season, and when he's played, he was out for a couple of games and he came back in for the game against Middlesbrough. I thought he was really, really good. He looks really assured at left back. So in terms of first and foremost, being difficult to beat and being strong at the back, I think he's going to be really important. We've got two big boys in Hellick and Brown. Again, I wouldn't say they're the most technical, I wouldn't say they're the quickest, but one thing they will do is defend the box. And at times this season, and in this game in particular, I can imagine that being a case. So I think having those two is something to hang on to if we do need that. And I think Norwich are going to be there will be a point where you're going to be coming at us. I imagine you've got those players that are able to do that. So that's important. Interesting to see whether or not Tyler Goodrum comes back in. He was sort of had this weird period where he's obviously a homegrown player, and he was fantastic in League One, such an exciting footballer. Then sort of fell out of the team at the start of the season, didn't really ever get into match day squads. And there's a bit of confusion as to why that was, because he's not the biggest of players, and sometimes physicality can let him down. But technically, I think he's one of the best. He came back into the starting 11 against Middlesbrough. Didn't set the world alight, but looked like he's ready to come back in and take the opportunity. So, yeah, it's we're not a team full of absolute stardust. I think if we get a result, and the results that have gone our way this season isn't for sort of individual bits of absolute brilliance. There's been one or two bits, but a lot of the time it's about us being a really cohesive unit. It's about every single starting player and even player coming off the bench playing their part. So yeah, it feels like if we're going to do anything this season, especially with Oxford, it's going to be every player has to be at it. If we win the game or we get something from a game, particularly winning it, every single player is going to have to be sort of at almost their top level, 100%. So, yeah, it's we've named I think Brian Kirschmacher, Lancashire, players like that. They feel like the number ones, and it would be Brannigan, but he's not playing.
Yeah, no. There is the players that you've named. There are. It is very much. I don't know how the word to describe it, but I think proper championship footballers in sort of the bottom half of the table, where you will play against them, and they are difficult to beat, difficult to take on, and we're gonna be in for a tough time as Norwich fans because breaking teams down has not been our forte this season, which is completely alien to us. We're usually one of the highest goal scoring sides in the EFL Championship, and this season in front of goal we have yeah, we just can't seem to get Josh Sargent goals. We just can't seem to score many goals in a match. Can't seem to create clear cut opportunities either. But are there any players that you're fearful of from a Norwich perspective? Obviously, I think Josh Sargent might be the main prospect here.
Yeah, he would be. I think Josh Sargent's one of those players that even if he's not scoring, you don't become a bad player overnight, right? He's not a bad footballer. He's still one of the best strikers. I think his biggest problem has been has he had that consistent service? I think you'll probably answer that question and say probably not. So that's obviously a concern. The thing I'm worried about, the biggest thing I'm worried about when it comes to Norwich, and the reason why I'm anxious, because obviously we're playing against a team that are 23rd. Is that right? 23rd
Yeah,
in the league.
23rd. Yeah.
And you got 9 points and you haven't won a game at home. You haven't got a point at home. But the thing that worries me is partly our away form. I know we picked up a win against Bristol City away, which is feels like ages ago. Even last season, we didn't win many games away from home. I do sometimes worry about the way that we approach games away from home. We can sort of go ahead potentially, and then we sit back and invite. So partly the reason why I'm worried is because of our approach, but it also is because of Norwich. And I've got this horrible, horrible feeling that it's a case of new manager, first home game. You've got 2 home games against us and QPR that you probably want to get 6 points from. Your fans are going to be up for it because you can't really have a go at Liam Mang anymore because he's not there. So you're all behind this new guy. That worries me. I think that is a Tuesday. Does that make a difference? Definitely not. Under the lights, that type of thing. That does have a factor, and that's probably why I'm worried. Because if you look at the form and you look at ability shown in the league this season, Oxford have been better. And that's the reality of it. But it's the circumstances. It's the way that feels like a new era. I know the new era didn't get off to a fantastic start against Birmingham, but you could almost sort of put that aside and go, it's Birmingham away from home. That's not nice. So yeah, it's more. I'm more fearful. Of course, you've got your sergeants. How do you pronounce? I need to get my pronunciation. It's not a Vista Garden, is it? How do you pronounce the
Kvisgarden, or
Vista
how
Garden?
he pronounced it in Danish is Kvisgoren.
Right. Okay.
But I think
Yeah.
either one works.
Him. Yeah. He's someone that obviously has started scoring in the last couple of weeks. And if you look at the shining lights of players you've signed, there haven't been many, but he seems to be one of them. So yeah, they're not my main 2, I'd say. But it's the answer to your question in a long roundabout way is it just feels quite a difficult thing for Oxford, which sounds silly. And Norwich fans might be thinking, you're mental. Have you watched us play this season? If I'm being honest, I've seen bits and pieces. I haven't watched loads of 90 minutes. I'll be totally honest. But it is the game state of the situation that you're currently in. I think your biggest advantage is the fact that this feels like the start properly of the Clement era, and that is an opportunity for Oxford to spoil that party or to allow him to have a fantastic start to what is some really big home games coming up for you. So that does worry me, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on there because a lot of Norwich fans were very happy just to to let the Birmingham game slide because he had 4 days of the squad. You go into a Birmingham side that had won 4-0 in their previous two home games, and it's almost impossible. And it's these two home games that a lot of fans were looking at the start of the Clement era. Teams like Oxford and QPR, that Norwich, on paper, come the start of the season, you look at the two squads, should be beating, and we do have quality in that squad, like Sargent, Viscar, and he started scoring goals, and there is a lot of players in this Norwich squad that just lack a lot of confidence. We know there's players in there like Harry Darling, for example, excellent at Swansea last season. As he started off his Norwich career very, very well in his first sort of 4 or 5 games. Just ever since sort of the turn of the first international break, it's just sort of gone downhill, and now he looks a player that looks destined for League One and completely out of confidence. So we know there's quality in this side, and it's just sort of, can Clement sort of galvanise this troop of players and get that confidence back and get us under winning ways. But
The first goal feels important, mate. I'll be honest. That
does.
first goal feels so important. I think if you take the lead, I think we've got a big uphill battle because you've got the goal. You're ahead at home in this game. That feels like a real opportunity for Norwich. And one thing I will say, and it's going to be really obvious, I'm sure you're all thinking it, but if you score first, I think that's so significant. I think you have to score first and have to start quickly. I think if we score, the benefit we've got is if we go 1-0 up, I think your fans, even though you're not massive on, you haven't got a massive feel towards your manager yet. He's only just come in the door, but there is that optimism of a new guy in charge. I still think there's an opportunity for Norwich fans to turn a little bit. I think if you go 1-0 down, whoever's managing the team, I think there is that lack of belief from players and fans if you go a goal down, and that could be an option for Oxford to capitalise on. But it is that first goal that is, I think, it's critical. Absolutely critical.
It absolutely is. If there is a first goal, it could just be.
Do you know what, mate? I wouldn't take it. It's a must not. Obviously, we want to try and win the game, but I don't think you need to win the game.
Yeah,
we don't necessarily need to. It'd be amazing. It'd be great if we did. It'd be ideally we win the game, but if we lose, it's not the end of the world because you haven't caught. You haven't sort of tightened that gap. So I might take a 0-0. Oxford fans might be killing me for saying that, but I know that it feels like an anomaly game with the situation that you've got with a new manager at home. That feels that feels significant.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We will just touch onto the little sort of game that we like to play on the opposition previews. Can you name 5 players that have played for Oxford and Norwich? I mean, I'll be very impressed if you get 3 because the list is crazy. It goes back many years, but there are quite a few that are recent that I've found. So yeah, I wish you the best of luck.
I'll be honest. I've got 2. And I've had to spend the entire episode of us speaking, thinking about this. And I think I've got 2. I could have 3. You're not going to let me have Liam Manning because that could have been my 4th. Because he did manage both of us, didn't play though. Yeah. The one that stands out, comes straight away is Murphy. He feels like the obvious one. Josh Murphy obviously was a massive part in he was the player that scored the 2 goals to get us promoted into the Championship. So he's a hero here. Not here anymore, unfortunately, but he's still a massive part of our history, and he was at Norwich. So that's definitely one. And the only other one I can think of, and this is going to be a real... 3. I've got 3. My second one, I've just thought of one. The other one is a player called Yannick Wildschut. Is that how you pronounce his
Yannick
name?
Wildschut, yeah.
Yes. So the reason why I remember him, and I'm sorry, Yannick, if you're listening to this, he was the worst player that Oxford United had. Well, not the worst, one of the worst players that I can think of in Oxfordshire. He was playing in the season that we nearly got relegated in. He came in, he then got injured straight away. I think he did his ACL, came back and looked like someone that, bless him, had an ACL, and he'd lost every part of felt like his legs, really. He struggled to run, which is key if you're a winger. So I remember that one. I do remember him being at Norwich and that being something that was mentioned when he signed. And the third one, and the last one, is Placheta.
Yeah.
That's the final one. And the only reason, and I do know this because I don't think Norwich fans were overly impressed by his performances in a Norwich shirt. For Oxford, it's been mixed. He's the most frustrating footballer you'll ever watch. He can also provide with a bit of magic, and he'll out of nowhere score an absolute worldie, and you'll think, how on earth has he done it? But for around 75 minutes of the game, you're going to be wanting to pull your hair out. But I do remember he played for Norwich. So I've only got 3, mate. I've only got Murphy, Yannick, and Placheta. I don't think I've got 2 more in me. They're the recent ones as well.
Ooh.
I'm looking probably in the last
Yeah, those. I think there's
few
one more that
years.
was recent, but he played in Norwich's academy. But I threw him in here anyway.
Right. Okay. Let me try and. Have you got time to guess? Have you got any clues? You got any clues? You maybe
He
think?
went to he went from Norwich's academy. I think he might have been on the bench for the first team for Norwich, but never. I don't think he ever made an
Right.
appearance. Then he signed for Chelsea.
We must have had him on loan then.
Yeah, you had him on
Chelsea
loan.
players on loan. Alex Matos.
It is Alex Matos.
Is
Yeah,
it Alex Matos? Yeah, that
Alex
was only last
Matos.
season. I was trying to think. I was trying to think of Chelsea loanees, and there hasn't been many, believe it or
Yeah,
not. And that was last season. So yeah, Alex Matos. I didn't know that he started at. I didn't know he started at Norwich. I wouldn't have got that until you said he was on loan from Chelsea. Because like I said, we haven't had many players on loan from Chelsea.
yeah, narrows it down a bit, doesn't it? And then you have got like the likes of George Long as well. I think he had a stint
Right.
with Oxford, and Ashley Barnes had a stint with you guys in 2007, I believe it was, on loan.
Right. Might have been about four then. I think
Yeah, so it's
might have been a bit, bit before my time.
it
But
does
yeah,
go back.
I
Obviously,
was alive.
some clubs are a lot easier to do. You've got loads of recent ones, but yeah, Oxford I think is the most difficult one to do in terms of Norwich and Oxford
Yeah, I think mainly
players.
because you've been in the Premier League and we were down in the National League for probably a few years during that period. So we're now only just the last couple of years. You've only been in sort of touching distance. So to be fair, I'm quite impressed with three. And Matos, I didn't know, so I've learned something today. So
There you go. There you go.
there we
Every day's
go.
a school day. But we
Absolutely
will finish the opposition preview with your score prediction.
brilliant.
What are you going for tomorrow night?
I am going to go with a draw. Um, I'm very, very nervous for it. Absolutely nervous for it. I'm going to say it's going to be 1-1. That's not a great result for you guys. If I'm being honest, and I hope there's no Oxford fans listening to this because I'm going to get slaughtered, I do genuinely believe if there is a winner, it will be for Norwich, which is, it pains me to say, but I think if there's a team that wins it, it's more likely going to be Norwich. But I'm going to go with heart/head, and I'm going to say a draw, and I'm going to say 1-1. What are you saying? Do you do a score prediction as
Yeah, I'll
well?
do it as well. Yeah, I'm going to go for a 2-1 Norwich win.
Okay.
I have a slight bit of optimism just based on sort of the occasion. Philip Clement's first game in charge of Norwich at Carrow Road, under the lights, relegation 6-pointer. I mean, if we don't win now, I just don't see us picking up 3 points all season. It's one of them. But yeah, Jack, thank you very much for coming on the opposition preview today. We'll leave all your links in the description below for
Amazing, man.
Bleed Norwich fans to go follow you. And thank you very much, Bleed Norwich viewers, for watching this video. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.